Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of A Dose of Drew and Friday Night Nights. And we have the Kershaw Bel-air. This is a new model from Kershaw that has a lot of stuff going for it. Let's get a couple of these quick measurements off here real quick just so we can verify what they claim. Just over 3 inches tip to scale, and just over 7 inches, about 7¼ tip to tail. So pretty decent size. It's right in the midpoint. We'll come back. I'm going to try a little bit different on the comparative sizes today. But first, let's get some of these empirical measurements. All right. It is not super lightweight, but it's not super heavy either. Just slightly over 2.9 ounces, or just under 3 ounces. That's incredibly good. All right, it is also relatively slim. It is Magna Cut blade steel. You can see that right there on the side. USA made, Kershaw. Very, very, very thin with some really slim cutting. Let's take a look at that. 0 here. 86.5 thousandths on the blade stock. Behind the edge at the peak here just about. Let me see if I can get it. $16 thousandths behind the edge. Yeah, sliding off a little bit. 16 thousandths behind the edge. Not the slimmest ever, but for that slim of a blade stock, that's pretty darn good. Right? So very, very slim. Has this familiar looking lanyard. Deep carry pocket clip. Extremely deep carry, meaning only the pocket clip will show. There's no part of the knife that goes beyond the clip, and it's actually the clip goes a little bit beyond. So very, very deep carry. All right, let's have a couple of other things on here. First up, just to give you an idea, I want a Kershaw's own, not just any leak, but a random leak. Very similar in size, right? And it actually seems to have a mixture between the random leak blade style, right? And the Warncliffe leak blade style. It's somewhere of a mix between there. It has a little bit different, but for what it's worth, it's similar enough to warrant mention that it kind of looks like it straddles the two. And another thing that definitely warrants comparison, the Benchmade bug out. The bug out is just about 2 ounces. This thing's just under 3. But you also, this is a different, this is not the stock Grivory, but the stock Grivory scales. This is aluminum with a thin, full steel liner. So there's a little bit of a heavier duty feel to the Bel-air, without a doubt. And just because I want to bring it in, since it is called the Bel-air, we're going to do another quick comparison. That is with the Malibu. So you can see the size is right in there between them, slightly smaller than both, though very close to the Malibu in overall size, slightly smaller, slightly less blade, slightly smaller than the bug out. Very similar blade, sharpened edge style. So a little bit smaller than both. And I believe, I'm going to double check here real quick, the Malibu is just over 3 ounces. So, just like 2.01 or something like that for the bug out, I believe. Double check while I'm not doing it on screen, but yeah, 2.02 in this configuration. Just under 3. So it really has this in between. And that's a good thing in this sense. These are all classic knives that a lot of people have and are in demand. So there's the fact that it's right in between there and doing it all at essentially production Kershaw level, an American production. We'll get into more of that here in a second. Is pretty good. It's right in that extremely competitive arena. And in fact, I want to talk about just like the scales themselves. Just under 4.4 inches. So it's well under half an inch. It's pretty narrow. To give you an idea with the Malibu itself, put the scales at the same height here. It comes in, let me see if I can find it. It comes in way below, right? So it's extremely slim. Thin blade stock. Full flat grind with that thin blade stock, which means that it has a distal taper to it as well with that sort of mix between a sheep's foot and a Warncliffe, kind of a worn foot sort of style. Very, very good out the box cutting action. It is ridiculously slicey for out the box. Little bit rough. Most factory edges only go to like 400 or 600 grit, but extremely well apexed and evenly apexed. That secondary bevel is very, let me see if I can get it there, is there you go. Very even across both sides. Let me see there. Very even and very sharp. Very well done. And with the nice, very prominent sharpening trail there, the Kershaw's often had a real love-hate relationship with plunge grinds and missing them, resulting in little smiles at the end there. This suffers from none of that, while also providing plenty of room for, in the pinch grip, for there to be finger. Now, there's still the edge right there, which is, this is not a hard use, especially in the piercing idea, but it definitely gives you a really, really incredible pinch grip selection right there where you can choke up. And there is just enough room, much like on the bug out, for a saber grip to really bear down. That's a really incredible thing to
all plans.
mention. Well, that was not intended, but staying in now. We're not changing it up for the moment. That came in, and I'm not starting over. Not again. Anyway, so the aluminum is anodized, what they call gray, but it's, I want to put a couple colors in it, and it's going to go out on the thumbnail too. It looks kind of gray right there, kind of an off-white, almost a tan. And if I put it on something like a brown or almost recycled paper, it looks almost like, I mean, that's like a cardboard color. That's like a restaurant napkin color. Look how close that is. And I'll even pull another one out here, and that's, take a look at it on something like this canvas, this Giant Mouse canvas bag. Right, take a look at the colors on that. Like, it's right in between those. It's an interesting gray that's very lightly colored, and I mean that in a good way. It's a very neutral color. The gray is almost a tan. That is really kind of an in-between, almost a taupe sort of color, right? The aesthetics on this, the handle is very neutral, very classic, really, really nice. And that blade looks like an EDC beast, and it does not disappoint. It is absolutely an EDC beast. I had a light burnout just before I'm coming to do this, so we're making do. I don't have another time during my week to record the upcoming videos. So I tried to take a little bit of time to get it, but we're just going to have to make do with this recording being not properly lit like some of the others. So there's going to be some long shadows. Sorry for that. But yeah, so the aesthetics are really good. It looks like a tool. It looks pointy. It looks like something you're going to use. For the EDC folk, you see that blade shape and you're like, oh, that's going to be a nice one, right? You kind of know, as long as they don't screw it up, they can do a lot with that geometry. And let me tell you, Kershaw did not screw it up. They put the time and effort in. They put the work in, and it's paid off. The mechanics with the KVT ball bearings and their Duralock, absolutely butter. Just smooth, linear, controllable. It has the neutrality of an iridium. So it's tuned much more like the iridium than, say, something like the covalent or even the heist. It's got that neutrality where it just drops, but it's so controllable, right? It's linear in the way you can control it while still being quickly drop shut, absolutely maneuverable. The action is, there's really just anything hard to find fault with that. The mechanics and the action on it is just about perfect. The thumb studs are there. About the only thing I can say about the Durlock here is the actual action. The studs for the Durlock are a little bit small, but not so much that you can't do it. But it's just hard to get used to the light touch that they require because there's not a lot of grip surface. There doesn't have to be. It's tuned extraordinarily well, but they're just not the biggest studs there on there. So that's something that takes a little bit getting used to. Right? So, but everything else about the mechanics of this, fantastic. It just absolute. I don't want to sit here and say perfection, like everything should be like it, but there's nothing to complain about. The action's tuned very neutral. It's incredibly easy to do. It's a small mass blade that is very easy to control, and the spring constant isn't too much for the small studs while still being enough to maintain good control over the blade, both going in and out. What's there to complain about? That's a very well executed design that you can tell was well done. The noteworthy points about this are going to go right with the intended purpose and everything else. This is Kershaw coming out swinging, everybody. They are putting down some heavyweight punches here. This thing is $150, just under. That's cheaper than a bug out, right? That's cheaper than, it's not cheaper than a BD1 paramilitary or para 3 lightweight or something like that. It's not cheaper than it, but it's only like $10 more expensive, 10 or 50 bucks. It's priced aggressively, and it's an EDC line in the sand, so to speak. It's like a stamp of Kershaw saying, we got this sort of small to medium EDC, and we're going to nail it. And that's, it's Magna Cut, full flat, blade stock as thin. Let me just reiterate this one more time. Blade stock that's as thin, if not thinner, as their, I mean, look at that. Look at that. That's the leak. Look at how, I mean, yeah, that's a hollow grind, so I guess, but look at how much smaller or lower height the grind is on there to get to the Bel-air here. It's incredible. It's very, very slicey with a good tough steel that's going to have really good edge retention, and that toughness gives it good geometry to have even better sliciness for what is obviously an intended purpose of EDC fantasticness. I mean, it's easy to use. It's fully ambidextrous. It's not pocketed, but it does have flush mounted screws, so with this deep carry clip, so it can go either side. Fully ambidextrous thumb says, fully ambidextrous opening and closing mechanism. This is a high quality. It's aluminum, not titanium, but there's people who are like, oh my god, it's not titanium, but the money you save is like $100 by this, or at least 50, if not $100 by it being aluminum. And it's still, quite honestly, if titanium or something like that is your idea of higher end over the grivery or you know, any of that stuff, which to most people it is, this is cheaper than the grivery bug out in S30V, and it's in a full metal design and execution. That's pretty crazy, while still being just under 3 ounces. So it's even wearable with some lighter weight materials, meaning it can be a year-round carry. This is that, oh, you just want one, you're going to spend money, but you want something that's bang for the buck. This is bang for the buck. This is right up there with anything that you say is the level of diminishing returns. This is it. Magna cut steel in a crossbar lock with a full I want to make sure I'm going to say this. Yeah, unskeletonized liner with aluminum scales on a crossbar lock for under 3 ounces with Magna cut steel, around $150 with deep carry. That's cost to value, intended purpose, and noteworthy points all in one. because this is extraordinarily high value, right? When it comes, just like we were talking before, when it comes to certain things like the bug out, spending the extra money on scales for the Kershaw is a no-brainer, considering I've done it for things like the bug out. So have many other people. Right? Same with things like the Para 3 or Paramilitary 2. Spending more money on scales for something that's this price is something people do. And you could easily do it. And with this basically neutral aluminum, you could do titanium or just anodize the aluminum. Aluminum is a very, very robust handle material. Good for even other high-end, knives and such like that. Like just a couple of these Protex here. Just to give you an idea of where this thing's hitting. So yeah, right at the $100.50 mark. Holy moly. This is 95 on the value, 96. Like it's really hard to beat on that value. That's cheap in today's market and really, really, really high value. And I'm used to Kershaw, like having a couple now. I've seen some of their new stuff they're going, and I expected a lot of their designs. And this thing has actually exceeded my expectations. It has a lot of the lessons they learned from their first 3 Duralock releases, the Iridium, the Heist, and the Covalent. And it takes some of the best out of all of them and applies it to a knife that's right approximately the size somewhere around a bug out. Just a little bit bigger and more robust than the Leak. Just a little bit smaller than the bug out. Approximately the same size as the Elementum, right? See how that's going there? It's like almost a mix. And it delivers with the Magna Cut steel, made in America, aluminum, full metal liners, and an overly deep carry clip. What more do you really want from a knife? I mean, this thing does it all. It's not even something to say. I mean, this is that tip and the, let's see if I can even that. Look at that tip. That is such a slicey little pokey tip. It is a package piercer. It is a shrink wrap or bubble wrap slicer. Cardboard carver with that thin blade stock and full flat grind. Cardboard carver, absolutely. And in the reverse grip, that basically that sheep's foot or a worn foot blade there makes it for an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. An EDC beast. And they really, it's really hard to say anything bad. Kershaw this is one of the best knives, and I say this as a fan of the Kershaw Covalent, right? A very, very high value, good knife. And as well as the Kershaw Iridium, another high value, nice knife. This is one of the best knives Kershaw has ever made. It is one of the best EDC knives when it comes to just materials, manufacturing, design, and execution that Kershaw's ever made. In my house, Kershaw has been around for as long as I have. They were formed the same year I was born. So we're talking about, I don't know about all their knives, but given just the fact that Magna Cut's new and there's never been a steel like it, there's at least that. And the aluminum and the full thing, it's just, they really destroyed it. The design is good. The aesthetics, I think it looks good. I don't think some people may not like it. It is definitely a subjective thing. But I think everyone will be able to agree that it's a decent looking knife. I think even if they don't think it looks really good like I do. The mechanics are really hard to beat. It's a lightweight blade, so it's fairly light on the spring. Right, so it can be flicked without actuating anything. So there is a little bit of that. Just keep that in mind when you're using it. But other than that, it is when intended to actuate. It actuates. When not intended to actuate, it doesn't. And that is true regardless. And its intended purpose as a high value, high quality EDC beast, it is so noteworthy about it that it's coming from Kershaw. It's a USA made with all of this stuff at a price that's just taken on everyone. Hogue, Spyderco, Benchmade, any of those guys. You get them in the higher cost. They're struggling to make this. This is the price point. And as many people said, that 150 to 160 range is often where the law of diminishing returns really starts to kick in. And I would wager that the Kershaw Bel-air is the new king of the law of diminishing returns. This is anything after this and you start giving up somewhere, or you start going up in price for very minimal gains that are more subjective than objectively. Yeah, you could go for titanium a little bit, or you go for like the Grivery, so you have to spend more money in order to get different scales or anything like that. You either start spending more money for something that's arguably not necessary, or you just leave it like this. And that's higher than any expectation I had from Kershaw. I didn't expect Kershaw to set the bar both for quality and diminishing returns. There's some nitpicky things if you want to get real nitpicky about that secondary bevel. It's not, there's places where it could have been done better. It looks like it was kind of sharpened quickly. There's a little bit of things that I would say are not always the same. You know, there's stuff that would change. For sure, absolutely. But again, would spending enough to make it a $170 knife to get that little thing, would it be worth it? Is that little tiny bit, like how much is it willing to spend in order to get it that teeny tiny bit better? And Kershaw right now, in my opinion, has the crown when it comes to bang for the buck. You can't get, like, it's hard to get much better than this. You can say titanium frame lock or titanium or, you know, carbon fiber. There's arguments to be made for a materials choice or a slightly different secondary bevel, right? That, like, let's see if I can, you can see how it gets thinner at the tip there. That's a slight difference. But it does it on this side too, so maybe it's has more to do with how it interrupts the full flat grind. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that are teeny tiny nitpicks that in order to fix them would probably cost at least $20 if not $50 and make the price of things skyrocket. And that's really where this comes in. It's incredibly high quality, very well designed, very well executed. While it's not inexpensive, it's still an incredible price for what you get. And that's where I'm going to leave it, you guys. That's really where this comes in. Kershaw's coming out swinging, and in my opinion, it's a winner. It's a winner in the bang for the buck in the law of diminishing returns. You spend the money on this knife. You spend it on a knife you can have for a really long time, made in America, that has incredible pieces, will last forever, and is also just about as inexpensive as you can get for this level of quality. And that's it. That's really well done. The Bel-air from Kershaw. Stay tuned for some more announcements about this knife. I'm just going to hint right here for all those who made it all this far that there is possibly a giveaway coming around with a Kershaw Bel-air. So for those who make it to the end, put down in the comments how you feel about that kind of giveaway. For those who have made it this far, also remember, go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew. You guys have a great rest of your night.